All right, good morning and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another edition of the New England Chapter Connects. As we ease out of the winter, public works departments are looking to get back outside with the warmer weather and get back into their outdoor projects. With all the projects and seasonal work, I'm sure that the public works departments are hoping to accomplish. Many of them are wondering who they have on their staff to complete all the work that they have planned. Well, this month we have a very timely topic, which is recruiting and retention in the workforce. We have an excellent panel of professionals from various municipal work positions, private consulting, and higher education positions that will provide their perspectives related to recruitment and retention. They will touch on subjects such as the recruiting strategies they have in their organizations, adjusting job requirements to match who they need, and maybe opening up more candidates for those positions, and how we are preparing for the next generation of public works. My name is Patrick Yo, and I'm a member of the New England Chapter Education Committee. I'd like to welcome everyone to today's New England Chapter Connect session, and just a couple of things before we get started. First, many thanks to our Public Works Awareness Committee and the New England Chapter Education Committee. Both of these groups work extremely hard behind the scenes to promote the value and importance of public works and to provide interesting, informative, and really beneficial learning opportunities for all of our members. Also, a big shout out to our New England Chapter Connect producer, Regina Hackett, whom this would never have a chance of being possible, and the entire team at the Connecticut T2 Center. They do an amazing job creating this program and really pushing it forward every month. And of course, special thanks to our APWA New England Chapter sponsors. Without this support from our sponsors, we can never bring all the valuable programs and events to our members in the public works community. The New England Chapter has started an exciting season of events, which began last week with the spring conference on April 20th and yesterday's administrative professionals workshop. And we'll continue with the Vermont Municipal Equipment Show on May 11th, the National Public Works Week Luncheon on May 18th, and of course, the 3-day summer conference on June 15th, 16th, and 17th. All of these events are helped made possible because of the generous support from all of our sponsors. So a genuine thank you to all of them is out on our end, and I hope you really provide that same thanks to them when you get to see them. The New England Chapter Connects program was created to keep all of us connected and informed and feel like we're still part of a community during COVID. We hope that you'll find that New England Chapter Connect series that we put out every month or on a good schedule will keep you informative and feel like you're still staying connected, even as we return to our in-person conferences. Now that we are returning to our in-person conferences, we will have one more exciting Chapter Connect session on May 26th, which will discuss new technologies in public works. After that, we'll take a little bit of a summer break and resume our series in September so that people can take their summer vacations and get to those summer conferences and the in-person events that we already have planned. We don't want to try to stuff things in here. So also, if you miss a session and you'd like to replay it for your staff, all of our New England Chapter Connect sessions can be viewed on the chapter website. Lastly, we're getting there. If you're not an APWA member and would like to be, or would like more information on upcoming New England Chapter Connect sessions, or if you're interested in becoming a sponsor, all this information can be found at the chapter website, newengland.apwa.net. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel for today. First, we have Scott Medeiros, a senior client manager at Woodard & Curran. Scott waves. Next, we have Cindy Shadig, the employment counselor for both New England Laborers Union Pre-Apprenticeship and Vocational School Program and the UMass Transportation Center's on-the-job support services.
Hi, everybody.
Next, we have Jeff Hoadley, Deputy Director of General Services for the City of Concord, New Hampshire.
Good morning.
Hi, Jeff. And we have our last panelist, but not least, Angelina Zulkic, the Communications Coordinator of General Services for the City of Concord, New Hampshire.
Hey, everyone.
And today I'm very happy to announce our moderator, Marilee Enos, the director of the Technology Transfer Center of the University of New Hampshire.
Good morning, Patrick.
Good morning. I'll let you take it away, Marilee. Thank
Excellent.
you.
Patrick, thanks so much for the excellent introductions, and thank you everyone for being here with us today. Our panelists, of course, have some great thoughts and experiences to share from their own efforts in the talent recruitment and the retention spaces, in all of their efforts to positively impact the current workforce challenges that they may be experiencing in the industry. So we met earlier this week, and we were kind of thinking through what are some of the ideas and the successes that we might want to share in this dialogue. And very quickly, as we tossed around thoughts and ahas, our conversation grew. And in that 1 hour of conversation, just planning for this, it really reinforced for me that there is no one size fits all solution. There's no quick overnight cure that we can offer for workforce challenges. But what this is about is continuing that dialogue, continuing to share ideas, creative solutions, things that have worked well, and hopefully helping everybody to take something back to their toolbox, something that might fit in their organization, to continue to engage and work with your existing workforce, of course, but attract new talent into the industry. So hopefully you will take something back from the panelists, but also we hope that you will join in and share and collaborate in the chat pod. If there is something that is working well in your organization, something that you have found allows you to connect with a talent pool that maybe you weren't connecting with before, or a certain way that you've been getting feedback and working with your existing team members to make sure that they feel supported and happy in their role, we would love to hear it. And we hope that you will contribute that conversation and help that dialogue. A lot of this is about providing information that you can then hopefully take back to some of the decision makers and the stakeholders that do support your hiring processes, and maybe help to inform them on what that market looks like and what's happening out there. And certainly hearing from your peers can go a long way in that. So thank you everybody for being here with us, and thank you panelists. I'm looking forward to a fantastic conversation. So let's get started right away. And what we're going to chat about first is kind of a chance to get us caught up to where we are today relative to what we were doing in the past. So panelists, can you speak to how your recruiting strategy and recruiting activities have changed recently? If you're using new recruiters or new technologies or social media or other ways to engage with talent and access talent pools. And I think I will start with Scott for that.
Well, thank you. I apologize if there's any background noise. Let me know if that's a problem. Yeah, we've engaged with a number of different types of recruiters on the private side of our businesses, both sides of our business being operations and the consulting side, where we've engaged a number of different recruiters. We've continued to use social media in a way that is creative and constantly trying to reach that younger generation of workers that seem to be the next group that's available and looking to move into the industry. We find that a number of good candidates come through the recruiters, but that we're connecting really well through the social media in a much more robust way than we did prior.
Excellent. And I think I might jump to Angelina on that, because I believe, Angelina, you've had some experience with that as well in Concord. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah, so I can definitely say over the years, we have transitioned more to a digital format for digital marketing, and we've definitely kind of gotten more away from traditional print advertising like the newspaper. We've decided and realized that the return on investment with social media is actually much better. Social media, it's free. There's also the opportunity for paid advertising as well, and that's relatively a lot cheaper than advertising in a newspaper. So we use Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram as our social media profiles to get the word out every time we have a job opening. And we also put it out in our monthly newsletter, General Gazette, and also in our web alerts, and we have it highlighted on our main homepage. So anytime that there's an opening, we try to blast it digitally everywhere we can think of, and we keep it fresh and we keep it current. But when we do paid social media advertising, we generally like to run it for at least 2 weeks minimum, and we have it targeted to people that live within 25 to 30 mile radius of Concord, so that we know we're targeting the area surrounding us. And we're really focusing on, again, as Scott mentioned, we want to make sure that we're reaching that younger generation, try to recruiting into the workforce.
Thank you. It's definitely a great area to be trying some new things out if you are looking at to get into that social media aspect of things. And Jeff, I'm going to jump to you, kind of the same question. Anything you're doing differently now than you might not have been doing before? But I think you've got a bit of a different take to share on how
Yeah.
Concord's been addressing this.
Thanks, Marilee. Yes, we've actually reached out and tried to make personal connections with a couple of agencies here locally. First of all, our high school. It does have a regional training center, which brings a lot of skill sets in terms of automotive, carpentry, plumbing, and electrician. And we've offered to go over and make presentations and then participate in interviewing techniques and mock interviews. One other place that we've also gone is our local Job Corps. There's a Job Corps headquarters in Manchester, and we've done similar type activities. We've given presentations, and then anytime an organization asks, usually through the HR system, if anyone's willing to go ahead and do that, we raise our hand and say yes, because it gives us an opportunity to get out there and sell our message.
Fantastic. And I love that idea of engaging with the Job Corps. And I'll kind of throw that question out there as well to the audience. If you are engaging with talent pools that maybe you weren't accessing before, whether it's refugee or veteran populations, and you'd be willing to kind of share that information, I think that can be a great source of making sure we're reaching everybody and we're reaching a diverse pool of candidates. So that's a great avenue. Cindy,
Marilee, can I add something here?
Yes, please do.
Okay, another idea, at least in Massachusetts, is for companies is to reach out to the tech high schools near you, because they all have a co-op coordinator, and that co-op coordinator can put you in touch with students who might be interested in co-ops. That gives you an opportunity to try them out and see if they'd make a good employee. Another consideration, similar to what Jeff is doing.
Outstanding. And I don't know, are any of our other panelists working with their career technical universities? Scott, do you have some of that happening?
Yeah, we do, and we've done internships routinely, given the statistics that show really high rates of retention through internship programs. So we've had internships as part of both sides of our business, but on the operation and maintenance side, so the operators side of the business, we've looked at veterans re-entering the job market, as well as those folks from trade schools that may have a lower level license coming out of those programs.
Super. Cindy, do you mind telling our audience a little bit about the work you're doing? Because I think it's a great area to look for the future generation.
Yeah, the programs that I'm working with are funded by our DOT, our state DOT. And we have a great program in which we go in and we work with primarily high school kids, but we do get some adults too that come through to us through another direction, but primarily with high school kids from the VOTEX. And we put them through a week-long program in which they learn all kinds of basic skills, everything from finishing concrete to doing line and grade to getting their first aid cards, a bunch of different things. If the kids that really excel and seem interested in working for, we're trying to get people into labor unions that work on MassDOT jobs, people that want to work for contractors that bid on MassDOT jobs, and people who work for MassDOT themselves or the cities and towns and their DPWs, their highway departments. What we offer the students that are really interested is we try to get them into a co-op or an internship. If their initial one is 4 weeks, we reimburse the town, the kid becomes a town employee, temporary employee, but we reimburse the town for up to $15 an hour for salary. So then if the kid does a good job on their co-op and the town is happy with them and the student wants to continue, we offer them a free scholarship to get their CDLB. We also offer them free tutoring to get their hoisting licenses from the state so they can run equipment. So that helps prepare them for getting a DPW job or one of these other positions down the road. So it's kind of a win-win deal. If the student does a good job in their first 4 weeks, we can also switch them to our other program and continue it. So they can get as much as at least 12 weeks of reimbursed co-op with a student or an adult in some cases.
It's fantastic. Cindy, how long has the program been in place?
I believe it's been in place for about 7 years, but it's been growing because initially, I think the program was fairly small and only hit a few high schools. Now we're working with, I think, 25 different VOTECs across the state. So all the way from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
Fantastic. And Cindy, we have a question in the chat pod that might be timely.
Oh.
Tom was inquiring on how the
Yeah.
workers' compensation is addressed.
They are your employees. They are your temporary employees. So however you handle those, that's how it does. We don't get involved in that part, so some towns, because of that, have chosen not to participate. And I understand that. A lot of the towns, especially smaller towns, don't seem to have any qualms about it. Some of the bigger towns are more concerned. But we've had pretty good luck placing the kids, and we've had a number of the kids who are now working full-time for a DPW, a contractor, and a union.
And that idea of how we can invite and expose the next generation to the work that's happening in public works, while still making sure we keep them safe is an important one. I know another organization I work with has a conversation coming up on that. So if anybody is looking for some information on, what it means to have a youth of a certain age on your job site, reach out. I'm happy to try to put you in touch with some resources there. Thank you, Cindy. Any other thoughts in the chat pod? I'm going to take a quick look here. Jamie did add that in Dover, they are doing some job shadowing opportunities. They work with their high school. That's great. We've had lots of conversations here in New Hampshire recently about apprenticeship opportunities and what that could look like. So it's exciting to hear your program that you're supporting, Cindy, has a good start on that. And it looks like Tom's added in that they use SkillBridge, which is a really fantastic outlet to connect with military personnel. So take a peek at that in the chat pod as well. Great suggestions. And on kind of the similar topic of accessing candidate pools and preparing the future generations and those who want to shift and pivot their careers into public works, I think the good segue into the conversation on what has been happening at Concord General Services with their Flex Tech position. So Jeff, would you mind telling us a bit about that?
Sure, Marilee, thanks. I guess 3 or 4 years ago, we decided it was important to go ahead and whenever a vacancy occurs, either through a retirement or someone leaving the organization, was to make sure that change, that job hasn't evolved in any way. And are we asking for the right individual? And use that position to go ahead and really decide what we need. And at the time, we saw that recruitments were taking anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks to actually fill a position. So we thought we need to have someone at the ready who can go ahead and move into that road crew to keep it at full strength. And so we decided we need to create a position, and it's interesting on how we got the title for this, but it's called a maintenance operation flex technician. And if you think about all of those keywords that someone might use to look for a job, we tried to include all of them so that, for those who are doing search engine optimization, maybe this particular position would be attractive to someone. Obviously, it has the maintenance piece, it has the operations piece. And then if anyone was looking for flexibility, and then obviously a technician. Well, once we will hire this individual, this person rotates after about 6 weeks across 4 divisions. And it rotates between our highway and utilities. And typically this person would serve on a road crew and learn all about everything from road construction and culvert work, snow removal, depending upon the season. And then they may rotate over to equipment services. And this individual may have, a special skills that, he didn't really realize he or she may have had. Then to our public properties, and finally to our utility billing. And I think over the last 3 or 4 years, we've been successfully placed about 5 individuals who, after they've worked for a division, all of a sudden the division heads, the superintendent say, hey, this is somebody that I think would be a nice fit for us. And when there's a vacancy, we can go ahead and do an internal posting in that position. We've been pretty successful.
It's fantastic. I think it kind of hits that important point of we might not know what we enjoy doing for work until we've had the chance to do it. So it's nice that they get that opportunity to see the whole world of public works from different directions. Excellent. And I want to jump to Angelina shortly to talk a bit about how you have shared awareness of that position. But before we go there, you brought up the topic, Jeff, of how positions changed and how have they perhaps evolved, and are we posting and hiring for the right role, at this point in the organization's lifespan. And I think, Scott, if you can kind of share any thoughts you had on how positions or roles might have changed, and are we adjusting or loosening requirements, anything that we're doing to maybe open up to a larger pool of candidates, particularly in your field?
Well, I think what we've seen, thank you, is more of having to react to what is the desire of the younger generation. As we look at the workforce that seems to be out there and available and interested, they have different perspectives on what's important to them. So we've looked at how to deal with flex work, and I think we'll hear probably a lot of conversation at some point here from everybody about how do you make your positions more flexible, or the number of days in the office, or how they get engaged in different types of projects. And so we focused a bunch on how to figure out ways to creatively interact our teams and get folks into positions that allow them some of the flexibility in some of their career objectives, such as more engagement in types of projects that they're specifically interested in being exposed to, and see how that fits within our teams.
It's excellent. And I'm sure, coming off the pandemic, we've seen more of an interest in that, and we've seen people that have experienced working in different environments, and that fits them well. I'm going to kind of throw that question out to the audience as well. If you've had success in moving that hybrid work model forward in your organization, or if you've had other aspects of your hiring where you've changed position roles in order to address certification needs or other requirements, we'd love to hear about that and hear how you're addressing that. I'm going to pop that question out to Jeff or Angelina as well. Within Concord, have you had certain positions that you've changed in order to kind of meet the population or the pool of candidates where they are?
Well, I would begin by saying that within the last couple of years, we've been able to have some of our staff work, instead of a typical 5-day work week, is work 4/10s. And we're able to do that in our highway and utilities division, because of course they have 3 road crews. So there's plenty of opportunity for overlap. Which makes this particularly attractive is that the supervisor is able to go ahead and schedule those 3 crews, so that during the late spring into the summer months, there may be a couple of opportunities for 4-day work weeks. 4-day weekends. So that time off is very important. And it's especially important that for crews that have just spent a difficult winter, and most winters are difficult, going through snow removal, that this is a nice break to go ahead and recognize some of their hard work.
Fantastic. And I imagine, some of our other municipalities on the call have similar successes and opportunities. There's a lot of conversation around hybrid work, and so much of what you all do and dedicate yourselves to in public works might not fit that virtual world, but finding those opportunities to bring that flexibility in is really important, and goes a long way with candidates and with existing team members where you can. So glad it's working out for Concord. And certainly if anyone else in our audience has some experience and feedback on how they've been able to make some adjustments, we'd love to hear them. And anyone else on our panel have any comments or thoughts on where they've seen positions perhaps changing to meet certification needs, or tap into candidates that have the skill set that we need to fill positions? Anything else on that before we move ahead a bit? Excellent. Angelina, I'm going to hop over to you because backing up to the conversation on the flex tech position, you all put together a kind of neat way to share that out and highlight it. And I think it's a fantastic use of engagement. So can you tell us a bit about how you've been using social media and that position?
Sure. So Jeff already touched base as to what that position is. But when we launched it, we knew that we were looking for somebody maybe right out of high school or someone who didn't know what they wanted to do for a career. Maybe they didn't have a lot of skills. And, again, going back to trying to retain and attract the younger generation, we realized that social media was going to be a great tool to use to try to get this position out there. So the first time we put it out, we did our traditional social media outreach. But then after we had our first successful candidate and we had somebody in the role as a flex tech, and then they were promoted to, I believe it was a laborer truck driver, we took that person and we actually interviewed them and we produced a video of their interview and we just asked them, hey, can you tell us, why did you apply for this? Why did you like this position? What did you do? What did you learn? What are your next steps now? And so we captured that in a video, and it was really just an honest way for somebody other than the organization to pitch it and just sort of build that credibility in a testimonial. So testimonials are really a great way to just showcase your organization and build some trust. So we did that, and then we put it as a video to put it back to social media, and it gained a lot of engagement. One, because video is just a great way to entice engagement, but two, because again, that testimonial is just such a strong, powerful tool. And we did the paid advertising on it for the next job opening. And that actually led to our next recruitment and the next person in that position. And they said, hey, I saw your video, I had to apply, and we ended up hiring them. So it was a great example as to how we just kept that going. And, moving forward with all the job postings, we try to just keep putting it out there.
Fantastic. And I completely agree with that idea of the testimonial having such impact. We find our favorite bakery or Italian restaurant or hairstylist through testimonials. We ask people and we take referrals. So doing the same for candidates and giving them that opportunity to hear feedback from the person in that position is fantastic. Very cool idea there. And Angelina, I know we have probably a different audience on the call, some people who have resources similar to the work that you're providing with Concord for a communications specialist type of work, and then other smaller communities that they might not have that dedicated resource. Any advice or suggestions you would give to a community that's thinking about building, or an agency or an entity building video into their recruiting process? Does it have to be a Hollywood quality video, or how can you go about it, finding something that fits your team?
Good question. No, it does not have to be a master-produced masterpiece. You might have help within your community, maybe a local nonprofit production. Like we have Concord TV that, they can help us sometimes produce videos, and, it's a free community service, so they're able to do that. Or, the way technology is today, even just using your phone is okay. If you wanted to use your phone to record a quick, simple video, it doesn't obviously you want to try to make it look the best that it can, but it's okay to have limited capabilities and limited technology. You have to start somewhere if you wanted just to put something out, because video is such a powerful communication tool that it really will entice and increase the engagement. So, there's tons of free softwares out there. You could just do a simple Google search and you can find, or, eventually over time, if you wanted to make some sort of investment, we do use Adobe software for a lot of our video editing and digital editing. But I think if you just start with what you've got, that's going to be better than nothing.
Thank you. Sometimes we need to just get going and find what fits for the cadence and how we're going to work with it. Jeff.
Marilee, if I could just add, when I was talking about how we assess each time we have a vacancy, that's exactly how we got Angelina in the first place. We had a retirement, and we had to go ahead and do some soul searching to say, where is Public Works headed? If you're part of public safety, if your uniforms are blue or you drive red trucks, they sort of speak for themselves. but Public Works has always has had to go ahead and fight tooth and nail for telling people how important we are. And, who better to have tell the story than someone who is good at social media? Someone who can write the press release for a water break and let the superintendent and the deputy director and director focus on what's actually happening. So, that's our real first success story was to be able to go ahead and to remain relevant and to have that position, created within our organization.
Super example. And I think the value of seeing social media impacting recruiting is just one component or one benefit of that. And certainly raising awareness of the public work story and helping to inform and educate communities is a whole nother piece. So yeah, and if anyone has not checked out the Concord's page, they do quite a bit. And I won't put Exeter on the spot, but I know Exeter, New Hampshire does a nice job sharing out videos from successes in their community as well.
I do want to just add real quick, if I may. The other side to this to keep in mind, and Marley, you kind of said it briefly, is that in addition to promoting job openings, you want to try to somehow, even if you don't have someone like me in your organization dedicated full-time to do it, somehow you need to keep sharing your story. You need to put the public works story out there and keep building your brand as to who you are. Because bottom line, when people go to look for a job or somewhere to work, they want to find somewhere that's reputable. They want to have some sort of idea and recognition as to, oh yeah, I know who they are and I've heard about them, and oh, I follow them on social media, or I've seen their website, or I got the brochure in the mail. Just something to kind of keep putting your information out there, who you are, what you do, and why it's important. Just kind of helps to highlight why we need to have more people in the field. And another thing that Concord does is we try to highlight our employees as well. So on social media and our newsletter, we'll put something together for new hires, retirees, or people that get promoted, just featuring them with a nice picture of them, nice big smile in their uniform, usually an action shot of whatever they're doing, whatever they're working on. And it just highlights, again, who we are, what we do, and it puts a face to our organization. It helps humanize our department and public works, helps build that relationship with the community. And again, it just kind of in the back of the mind keeps people aware of, oh, wow, there's so many job openings and so many different things that the city does that I'm not aware of. A lot of these things are often in the shadows. So keep putting it out there, and it'll kind of, once you have that job opening, they'll say, oh, I remember seeing something about that.
Excellent thoughts. And out there in the audience, if you have any of those unique engagement videos or things that you've done that you would share in the chat pod, please do. It can really inspire others to see how your community is building that story and engaging. Scott, anything you would add to the conversation before we move on from the social media discussion, but that Woodard and Curran is doing that has been successful in how you're engaging in social media or creating content? How do you get that message out?
Yeah, thank you. We have the benefit of a marketing division that focuses on that, but we have shifted our focus to constantly pushing out to LinkedIn, through LinkedIn and or Instagram videos about where our folks are presenting at conferences, what are the topics, what are the unique projects that we're bringing to our clients and to the industry, and highlighting our staff and their accomplishments in a way that it would incent folks to want to be part of that. I think the other change, and I think that was just highlighted, was the younger workforce, the next generation of our talent in the industry. They really want purpose. Everyone wants to make a living. Everyone wants to make a good salary, but they do have a focus on purpose and having an impact on society. And so they really are driven by the opportunities to participate in things that are making a difference in the world. And so that is something to highlight, I think, when you're putting together social media videos and things, is that you are accomplishing a lot of things for the general public and for the world in general, conveying clean water and ensuring clean water and doing a lot of the things that have deteriorated over the years. So I think that focusing in that area is important.
Thank you. And who doesn't like celebrating the good stuff, right? Getting some more good news and accomplishments out there. It's always great. So kind of a good breakaway into the next part of our conversation, and what folks are looking for and what people are looking for in their careers, and how quickly the market is moving. we sometimes, as humans, we think the grass might be greener on the other side. And if we relate that to attrition, sometimes we do find out after leaving that the grass is not always greener when we end up in a new position, and individuals may regret a job change. Uh, it's a fiercely competitive market. We know that things are moving quickly out there in the workforce world. How have you all been able to identify and highlight your organization's strengths when you're recruiting new team members, but also using that to engage and retain your current employee workforce? Are there benefits or training or internal programs that you found are bringing people into your organization, but also encouraging and supporting your current team members? And I'll start, Scott, if you don't mind, I'll kick right off with you on that one.
Sure, thank you. I think we've spent a lot of time and effort in mentoring programs internally, so pairing folks up with folks that they in the organization that they aspire to follow in their footsteps, so to speak, but also just to give them an opportunity to see what the pathway is for their career and establish a career pathing objective. It gives them a purpose. It gives them something to strive for. We've also incorporated feedback at a routine level, so that we're constantly providing throughout the year feedback both to our employees and back up the food chain, up the ladder. So it's up and down the ladder where we're able to provide each other with positive and constructive feedback throughout that whole period of the year, as opposed to a simple end of year review where everybody's sort of anxious and gets to the end of the year and doesn't know what they need to do or what they may or may not have done well or not so well throughout the year. So that's something we focused on substantially as we've modified the way that we look to not only attract but retain our staff.
It's fantastic, and I think it's really important. Particularly, we've been in such a fast-paced world where everything is changing so quickly to not hold everything for a whole year and then look back and say, okay, what's gone well this year? What do we wish had gone differently? So that's a great takeaway, is to try to speed up the cycle of providing feedback and make it more live. That's certainly how we're working now. So it provides for some more resiliency in that process. Outstanding. Jeff, anything that you would add in terms of are there programs or things that you found have helped to highlight the opportunities either within the field or within Concord General Services?
Sure. I think the first thing is, in order to attract some of our prospective employees, is first of all, we talk about benefits. I would say over the last few years, that gap is beginning to narrow a little bit. So there isn't as much of a difference between municipal benefits and private sector. But I would say that predictability, our schedules, with the exception of snow removal and things that we can't control, the schedule is very predictable. And it's going to help create a very good work-life balance. So that's certainly some things that we can go ahead and talk about in order to entice people. Once they're here, I think we do a pretty good job of succession planning. When we're providing feedback to our employees, I think our supervisors and our superintendents are reaching out and trying to feel whether or not an employee has a desire to go ahead and move into positions of more responsibility. And if they do, we have an insurance carrier, Primex, who has training classes like Supervisors Academy. Some opportunities that we can send these young employees to go ahead and show that we're willing to go ahead and invest in them. To go ahead, ideally, we'd like to see someone who has their entire career here at Concord General Services. They could start out as a labor truck driver, and then over time they could become the highway and utility superintendent. There is enough opportunity within our organization to do that.
Wonderful. And Scott, I don't know if in following up to that, your comment regarding how you are managing performance coaching in Woodard and Curran's current situation, do you relate that to succession planning? And have you found that having those conversations and speaking to Jeff's point of developing your leaders early on, has that been able to be a realized benefit to that?
Oh, I think we have realized an advantage of building our pipeline for the next leaders within the company. If we're able to retain that talent, bring them through their career path goals, and bring them to an ownership type of level and management level within the company, we've had success in that area. I think it is interesting. Jeff pointed out that the work-life balance, and I do think that that is something you hear over and over again. We hear it on the news, we hear it in these conversations, and we are a little more challenged on the private side. So I think it's easier to sort of have a more of a predictable schedule on the public side. But it was interesting in our conversation preparing for this meeting that we talked about how we're on the private sector and on the public sector, we're starting to interview the same folks. They're considering opportunities on both sides of the workforce and potentially working for a city or town, but also potentially working for a consultant. So it's more of a competition. The gap is narrowed of the available staff, and they're looking at both avenues. And so being competitive with each other, both sides have sort of different advantages that had historically been in place, and now it's starting to narrow. But we have had success with the techniques we're using, keeping folks programmed in their pathway that they desire, and we're always willing to pivot. We also offer the educational opportunities that Jeff was mentioning, where we support them and continuing education, working toward a operator's license or other types of certifications within the industry.
Super. Cindy, when you're working with students and that possible next generation of the workforce, or those who are maybe upskilling or wanting to change careers, are there factors that you feel they're communicating or influencing those career decisions, or more granularly, their decisions to accept employment with one organization or another?
Kind of. What we really look for is young people that are interested. And I think, the kids' motivation is key, because some of the kids just, they don't know what they're going to do. They aren't concerned about it. They're not thinking about it. And then on the other hand, we have kids. I have a 17-year-old who at the end of our week-long program in his high school came up and thanked us and thanked us and thanked us because he said, I knew what I wanted to do, he said, but I didn't know how to do it. And his whole goal was to find a good paying job, and he wanted to buy his family a home. That was his goal. I think his parents were immigrants, and that was his heartfelt goal. And he was so grateful because now he had an idea about how he could get there. So, you really have to find the kids that are motivated, that are interested, and some of them simply aren't. And, if they aren't, there's not a lot we can do to interest them, I don't think, except we do keep circling around and coming back to kids. And sometimes it pays off. Sometimes it does pay off. Once they've had a little bit of the real world and they decide they don't want to be at Dunkin' Donuts for the rest of their lives, then they say, you know what, I should have done this, and I can still do it. Oh, wow. And, then they get into it. But it's really finding people that are interested, but it's also about educating at least the young people about what some of their choices actually are that are sitting out there, that they didn't know about, and helping them figure out how to go looking for those opportunities, because they don't necessarily have those skills. So.
Thank you. And I don't know, Jeff or Angelina, if you had any follow-up thoughts on that, on how, in Concord, you're looking to identify those career pathways or keep employees engaged and aware of what's available to them. Jeff mentioned it's great to have somebody want to spend their whole career here. And are there certain tips that you've found that work to keep that conversation going and keep circling back to that? You might have already shared some of that.
Yeah, not quite answering that question, but just to maybe piggyback off of what I was talking about earlier, that, we continue to share the message of Public Works and we highlight our employees. And I think it's important to remember highlighting employees and the services you do and the programs you put on, it's informing the public, but at the same time, you're building up your internal organization as well, because you're uplifting your staff. You're showing everyone that what you do is important, what they do is important, and that it matters. Like Scott was saying, there's value to it. And it continues to drive home the message that we're all in this together. We work as a team, and every person has their own value to the company, and we try to highlight how they do that. So I think that helps to retain them, because it makes them feel like they're valued and what they do makes a difference.
I would add just one thing, Marilee, and that is that one of the ways that we go ahead and make sure that we've got an employee to do a specific task is cross-training. If you can take labor truck drivers and be able to expand their experience and their knowledge base by learning how to do other things, possibly a road crew, a labor truck driver working with someone either on a water crew or a wastewater crew. I mean, giving them some cross training, it broadens their resume. It makes them, have it expands their experience and things that they can talk about, things that they've actually worked. So cross training is a very important part to go ahead and show your employees you care about them as individuals, allowing them to grow.
Excellent, giving them those supported stretch projects and opportunities to continue that development. Very true. And so another kind of part of this conversation that came up in our planning was more the logistics of how we are moving candidates through the consideration stage and through the application stage, and that it is a fast moving market, and who's here today applying might not be here tomorrow. They might have taken a position somewhere. I'll start with you, Scott, but certainly if there's not anything specific that pops out, we can hop over to Jeff or Angelina as well. Are there any changes that your organization has made to make sure that you have an efficient and applicant-friendly process for folks to engage with and learn about your opportunities and move through that candidate process?
Our HR department has focused substantially on modifying our process. So we are doing a lot more of the online ease of application. We've accelerated our process of review and scheduling for interviews. It used to take us, I remember when I first started working here, it took 5 or 6 different interviews to kind of move through the process, and it took a long time to get there. And I think to the company's credit, it was to make sure you're bringing the right people on board, and it costs a lot of money to bring people on board, get them up to speed, only to have them leave is a challenge, right? So it's a substantial investment that you make when you bring someone on board. But as you stated, in this marketplace, you have to be a little more nimble in identifying the candidates and the qualities in those candidates more quickly, get an offer in their hands and sort of work out an acceptance and move very rapidly, because there's fierce competition, as you noted. And so we have done that, streamlined our process in a way that allows us to make those decisions more quickly by prioritizing the staffing needs.
And I would imagine some of that is kind of a larger group conversation that you want to make sure everybody upstream all throughout the process is ready for finding time in our schedules to interview with candidates. And if we're committing to the process that we can do that, it takes juggling a lot of different components and different schedules sometimes, but it's an important piece is to tighten up that process as much as we can.
True. And some of that is making sure that once we've posted a position, it's a real position that we really need to fill, so that we can then react quickly to candidates as they flow in. And the need is really the thing that we need to make sure that you have all your needs identified in a really clear way and get that out the door. And then as soon as applicants start coming in, you can start to move on them.
Great suggestion there. Jeff, anything that you would add that you're seeing along those lines in Concord in terms of how you're moving folks through the process?
Yeah, sure. We've got a couple divisions that have different techniques. One of our divisions, is fond of going in and reaching out to applicants with a phone interview first, and that's the very first way that they can go ahead and gain a perspective on whether or not this is somebody who is a viable candidate. And if they are, you need to go ahead and take control of this particular individual and stay in touch with them. You go ahead and within a couple of days instead of weeks, you need to go ahead and let them know what the next step is. Others, we've gone ahead and tried to do interviews, and folks do very well on interviews, and you're ready to go ahead and move in the process. And unfortunately, you get ghosted. And it takes 2 or 3 phone calls and no one's calling back, which suggests that this particular individual has gone in a different direction. So our HR department's been very helpful in providing some tools to go ahead and maintain that contact. But of course, that can be very time consuming. And so it becomes a balance between how much time of your day do you go ahead and do some hand holding with potential employees versus being focused on the job at hand. So it's certainly a balancing act. But I think all of us know that if someone's out there that looks like a good candidate, you get them in, make sure they're qualified, and continue to push them on through, the background checks and things of that nature.
Thank you. We don't have a Zoom poll, but I'm sure if we did asking who's been ghosted, we all are familiar with that term and have felt the pain in recent years. So you're not alone in wanting to address that. And I want to make sure we leave a few minutes for questions and comments from the audience. But as we move towards wrapping up the panel conversation, I want to chat a little bit about what I think Jeff had brought up in the idea of succession planning. One component of the workforce shortage that could be felt even more deeply in coming years is the aging workforce, and seeing our pillars of knowledge and our longtime go-tos start to move towards retirement and exiting the workforce. So I'm curious from our panelists how you're planning for that future and the loss of that institutional knowledge within your organizations. Jeff, since I see you unmuted, do you want to hop into that first?
Yeah, sure. Before I became Public Works, I was in the military, and each of our jobs required continuity books. So I would say for those employees that have been with your organization, it's become second nature for them to know what to do on a weekly basis, a monthly basis, semi-annual and annual basis. But you need to get them to commit all of that knowledge in their head to some sort of document that categorizes those things that they do. It doesn't need to be perfect, but as soon as you have an inkling that they're going to retire, then that's a fabulous way to go ahead and do it. I've seen some supervisors, they go ahead and use everything from some standard operating procedures, maybe the winter, our standard operating procedures for winter operations, that comes in, that could be included in what that particular individual's role in that SOP is, but certainly something that can be left for the next person who fills that job, at least to get them off on the right foot.
Great point. And there are so many different ways to try to do it. Start somewhere. We've used Zoom at T2 to record some of our standard processes. We've used Trello template cards, find something that works and get that information and make that time, for that individual, plan that out. Scott, anything that you would suggest from your perspective as you've worked at succession planning in your organization that you think is important to call out?
Yeah, I think it's a little different than, largely our audience here today are public works folks, but on the private side, we have the same issues when it relates to our needs of staff and serve our clients. So we look ahead at trying to anticipate how those positions may open in retirement. So as our retirements are coming on, we're trying to think about how far down the line we're going to need to backfill those positions, and are we doing that internally, or are we looking to replace that position with a new hire? It has less to do typically with institutional knowledge on our side, because our knowledge and records are kept pretty tightly. But I've seen clients where we've tried to help clients that are in the DPW or in the public works side of things, try to figure out how they deal with promotions and retirements and backfilling. And some of that is with the implementation of technology, taking technology and starting to capture some of that knowledge and store it in a way that they haven't been doing previously. And that's really seems to be what I've observed in the marketplace is that. And I think we spoke earlier, and it's interesting, it might be interesting to point out to the group for thought process here and for consideration, is that, a lot of times you find that it's a few generations down or folks that are in line that maybe aren't best suited for the position that's being vacated. And from a technological perspective, it may be someone a few rungs down that is really best suited to understand all of the technologies and be willing to work with those technologies. So that's something that's unique to public works that we don't see necessarily on our side as a problem.
Interesting. Thank you. And as we come up on the hour, just want to check in with our panelists. First, thank you all so much for all of your great insight and ideas. But any other burning comments or thoughts that we might want to add before we check in with our audience for any questions? I'm not seeing the unmutes, but I think we'll take a couple minutes here. And Regina, if it works, we'll kind of see if the audience has questions or comments that they want to pull through into the discussion here today.
Absolutely. And just to let everyone know, I did, everyone can unmute themselves. So if you do have a question, you can join in the conversation right now. And Marilee, I see that Tom just dropped a question in the chat box.
Excellent. And I'll put this out to you, Jeff, Scott, certainly Cindy or Angelina in your roles, if you've seen anything along this lines. Have you modified job descriptions, reducing previously required degrees and asking for relevant experience in place?
I would say that our duty descriptions have been fairly flexible in that if there was a particular certification, there was typically about a 6-month period that someone could take in order to achieve that certification. But I would say most of our duty descriptions have not changed. We've tried to go ahead and in some of our divisions, when we've had some vacancies, if there was some special skills, like, oh gosh, an HVAC technician, which our public properties division thought would be important because of the amount of money that we were spending for outside services, then we would modify a job to be heavy in HVAC type activities. You know, that's a two-edged sword, because obviously somebody in the HVAC world can probably make a higher rate of pay, and so it's harder to keep those individuals. So you know, that's what we've seen.
I've also seen some towns with the new CDL requirements. They have gone to giving people 6 months to get them, or even helping fund the cost of the CDL school. That's the only one that I've seen.
And Marilee, if I could just add something really quick, given this is the open forum pod, I think one of the things, and the fact that we have UConn, UNH, and UMass representation today, one of the things that's really, really important is what new graduates are leaving in their toolbox. So, for example, you know, in school they're learning about strength of materials and fluid mechanics and all of these other subjects, but things like AutoCAD, Civil 3D may not be a part of the curriculum, or at least extensive enough so that when they're graduating, they're able to get into a job where these things are so important to them. So I think that that's something that should be considered as part of the curriculum. That's a little bit more, I mean, AutoCAD is one thing, but getting into the details, and there's other, you know, there's other programs obviously for drainage and traffic engineering and those sorts of things, but it doesn't seem that the students are graduating with a firm understanding of that, because when they get into the, at least in the consulting end, I know some cities and towns have pretty extensive engineering departments, like town of Brookline. They really need those skills, and so that may be something that goes into the suggestion box in the dean's office. Two other really quick things I would like to say, because I know we are on the hour. One, we talked, I heard people talking today about Public Works awareness. I just want to throw that out there. I put it in the chat box. The Public Works Awareness Committee for the chapter is very robust, and we're always looking for new members. And the whole purpose of that is to spread the word about Public Works and why it's important for the quality of life that we all enjoy. So if anybody is interested, certainly reach out. We'd love to have you on the committee. And then lastly, I know Marilee, you're probably going to get a little red in the face, but we do want to, Marilee, our moderator today, was actually the APW winner of the Donald C. Stone Award this year for excellence in education. So congratulations, Marilee, and keep up the great work. So that's all. I'll go back to mute. I'll mute myself now.
And thanks. And Rich, a great point on, you know, connecting with your universities and sharing those ideas. You know, here at our T2 Center, we work with civil engineering students, and we have them do special projects. And those can be great ways to expose them to some of those things that help us in our center, but also give them a real practical experience. So little plug for the LTAP centers there. Do connect with them. And oftentimes we can also connect with our universities in the area to share some of that. So thank you for that feedback. Thank you very much to our great panelists, to all of your experience and your input. The audience, obviously these conversations don't stop here. We hope that you will keep collaborating, keep connecting, sharing how things are going, stay in touch with New England APWA, of course, but one another. Any final parting, burning questions or comments that anybody has out there in the chat pod? I'm not seeing anything. Well, thank you, everyone. Angelina, Jeff, Cindy, and Scott, we appreciate it. Regina, thanks for coordinating this session. Everybody take care, stay well, and have a wonderful start to your summer projects.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Patrick.